Welcome to Simmons Says, where I help emerging and struggling writers create intriguing plots and compelling characters to make their stories hard to put down and even harder to forget.
Hey there. Welcome to Simmons Says. I'm Alex Simmons. That's why it's called Simmons Says. Anyway, for this episode of Simmons Says, I thought I would play for you an excerpt from a live mystery writers workshop that I just did recently. It's got a nice little bit on why choosing a crime and placing clues. So give a listen. And the next time I do a live workshop, join me. You get to ask questions and I get to answer them and you have a good time. Anyway, here you go with this excerpt from my Simmons Says Write the Crime live workshop.
On a simple weekly shopping trip, 3 senior citizens were kidnapped. Their captors are demanding $300,000 for their return in the next 24 hours. Now, okay, that sounds pretty basic. All right, they've kidnapped some people, and obviously the family or whomever is going to have to come up with 300,000 to get them back. That's maybe 100,000 apiece, right? But the seniors are not wealthy, and they're not from wealthy families. So how could the kidnappers expect to get $300,000 for these people's return? So why were they targeted? How did the kidnappers expect to get their demands? And as I said in the teaser, the police have no idea. And oh, yeah, that's right. Neither do you. And you're the writer. So this is an example of that situation where we might have this really cool idea and we start going with it. And in some cases, some people might have gone, this is a really cool idea. I like it. I can see the people. I can see the situation where they get grabbed. This is great. I'm going to start writing the story. And you start writing and you find yourself in a hole pretty quickly. Because yeah, okay, wait a minute. How do they expect to get paid? Why did they pick these people? What's going on here? Now, in this case, I picked the crime of kidnapping. I picked the victims after I'd already thought about what kind of criminal would do this and what that criminal is after. Yes, that's what I thought. Yes, I saw this scenario as a possibility, but before I went any further with it, I started thinking about why would somebody kidnap 3 people who do not have access to any money, any big money? What would they possibly do this for? One might go because they're sick. They're bullies, they're sick, they're psychos, whatever. Yeah, that's a cop out. No, we're writing a murder mystery. I'm sorry, I just said murder. We're writing a mystery story. We're writing a mystery story. And the mystery needs to be why these people were chosen as targets. What is the criminal really after? When you ask yourself that question, why this, why that, then you start to develop the crime. So in this case for me, and I'm using this as an example, in this case for me, I don't know what you're thinking, but my thought was they grabbed these people either as a distraction from something else they're going to be doing, or because they know something about one of these people that nobody else knows, and that's going to lead to the 300,000. So I played with those two ideas. And based on how big a story I wanted to write, and I, in this case, wanted to write a short story, I went for the smaller scenario. I went for the kidnapping of these 3 people is meant to open up another door to the wealth that these people are actually after. So a criminal chooses these 3 people to kidnap to make these demands. They've got them held prisoner somewhere. I have to figure out where. I have to figure out how they captured them, right? And then I have to figure out what is that criminal really after. And since I've already stated that the family has no money or they're not wealthy, I have to then think, well, these 3 or one of these 3 is connected to something that's going to lead to the money the villain wants. And I decided that someone that knows one of these people, maybe a more distant family member, is in a position at a job or at a bank or at a jewelry exchange, and that this person is going to do X in order to make sure that their loved one comes home safely. That's how I began to put the pieces together. Now, based on those elements, I now think about the villain more. What kind of person would engineer this kind of crime, right? And what does that person need to pull it off? Now, I don't know what some of you are working on, what kind of stories you're working on, but I want you to understand that these steps absolutely apply to anything, any kind of mystery story that you're thinking about. Because once again, it's what kind of crime, and I'm going to be saying this several times during this session, what kind of crime is being committed, what kind of person would commit that crime, and then we're going to go on to some of the other elements involved. So let me move forward with the slide. That's right, slide. Let me move forward. Slide's not letting me move forward. That's not nice. Come on, slide. You can do this. There we go. Okay. And I feel like, I love when technology just decides to do that to us, it just decides, no, I'm not gonna function for you. Why should I? What have you done for me? But okay, so here we have it. So here's a one question here. Remember I said I needed to understand how these people were grabbed? Okay, so I already said that they were on a regular shopping spree. So what's the location? In this case, it could be a sort of neighborhood kind of store, something like that, or again, thinking about how the crime is committed, what would be the easiest thing to do? I don't want to put them in a huge mall where there's going to be, 100 witnesses to this thing. I want to make it as easy for the villain, and this is how the villain's thinking. I want to make it as easy for me as possible to take control of these three people and maybe the driver who's with them if they needed a driver, right? Take control of the situation, hustle them off into whatever conveyance I've brought along, and get away clean in the least amount of time. So the location. So I'm thinking if it is a mall, they're not going to do it in the mall per se. They're going to do it in the parking lot. They're going to do it somewhere where these people park, and they're going to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. So I choose the location, right? I know some of you who are on this, I've worked with a few of you, and there's one particular person that had a location. Uh, and I hope, I'm not going to say the person's name, but I hope they'll forgive me for using this as an example. But they had a crime take place in the dock area, shipping dock area, where ships come in, passenger ships as well as cargo ships, and then they come in, and a large, heavy item was going to be stolen in this environment and hidden somewhere else by one person. And the setup for this it's a great idea, and it's a great MacGuffin that we're talking about. The item that's to be stolen is great. All of this was really well worked out. What hadn't been worked out is the mechanics of getting this heavy item from point A to point B pretty much unseen by, the dangerous eyes that are somewhere in the area by this one person, because the item is very heavy, it's a bit clumsy. These are the things that we needed to work out. We needed to actually look at what are the possibilities in order to make it possible for that scene to work and the story to continue. So again, you choose your location, then you have to choose the mechanics that are involved.
So that was an excerpt from my most recent Write the Crime Live workshop. If you missed that one, click the link somewhere around here, get on the list, and I'll let you know the next time we do one. Meanwhile, be here next time for the next Simmons Says, where I help you figure out what happens next in your story, in particular, in your mystery story. Take care.